A charity is warning that the care sector could be devastated because of confusion over the government's settled status scheme. They say if thousands of EU-born care workers fail to apply in time, they risk being criminalised and possibly deported. The government says nearly 5 million people have already applied and that it's investing £17 million in a support campaign. Here's our Work and Money correspondent, Mark Ashdown.
Clap for Carers became a beacon of hope in a dark time. But when the clapping stops, there's concern at what might happen to some of these heroes of the pandemic. As part of Brexit, all EU nationals living here must now apply for settled status. They have until June, but a new report finds large numbers working in the wider care system are unaware. The Joint Council for the Welfare of Immigrants surveyed 300 EU-born carers online and followed that up with face-to-face interviews. Of those they spoke to in person, a third hadn't even heard of the settlement scheme, and half of those weren't aware there's a deadline looming. Now, half of those surveyed also said they needed help filling in their application, but 9 out of 10 didn't know where to go to find help. Maria is one of the 13,000 EU care workers living in London. She had no idea she now had to apply to stay until she was told by the charity.
When I came here, I came in with a passport, no permit from work, so I can find easy work only with my insurance number and my passport. So then they tell me if you want to stay and live in the UK, you have to apply. So I was like, why? Because
You live here?
Yeah, I'm living here from 5 years, so I don't see the point. I pay tax.
Now, the government points out the survey was a small sample and nearly 5 million people have applied. 72 charities are also being given £17 million to support people. But if even a small fraction fail to apply in time, it could spell problems.
Not only would significant numbers of EU citizens falling out of status after the deadline devastate the care sector in the middle of a pandemic, but it would also leave potentially tens of thousands of people vulnerable to hostile environment policies overnight, including detention and removal.
Care workers support charities are also concerned at the knock-on effect if any EU nationals have to leave.
It's going to have a compounding impact on already big vacancies in the sector, staff absences due to COVID and testing, and I think soon enough we'll also start seeing burnout. So any potential care workers from the EU leaving in the next few months because of their status would be very drastic to the sector.
My friends who was working with me, she have to leave the country because she get the right information, but he didn't find someone to apply for her in the internet because of her English. He didn't know, so just she left the country.
The Home Office says that's the last thing it wants to see happen, but the clock is ticking. All EU nationals have until the end of June to apply or face an uncertain future. Mark Ashdown, BBC London.
A reminder there, Mark, of just how important these workers are to London.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it does seem to be an issue here. I think the question is, how big is it? Look, the government is perfectly right to say 5 million people have applied. That's great news. But the data on EU nationals living here is a bit patchy, so there's no real way of knowing that we're not going to get to the end of June and find out suddenly that lots of people, for whatever reason, haven't applied. And then there could be quite a serious issue. Some fear potentially a Windrush-style scandal even. So to that end, charities are calling on the government to scrap the deadline altogether, or if not, to grant status to anyone who was here automatically at the end of last December, or certainly to ramp up the publicity campaign at the very least.
So also then a reminder of just how important it is that all EU nationals living here apply for that settled status.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're just looking at the care sector here. Of course, large numbers of EU nationals work in the NHS, in hospitality, in construction, all sorts of professions. So the key thing is for everyone to go to the website, gov.uk, and check what you need to do. Even those with permanent residency need to apply. The only ones who don't are those with indefinite leave to remain. But even those, it's worth looking at it because you do get better rights applying for this new system. For example, if you're going to leave the country for any period of time, you get longer under the new system. So important everyone who is an EU national does check, and in good time before the end of June.
Right. Thank you for that, Mark Ashdown.